Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be discussing how one of Bombora's customers, SugarCRM, leverages Bombora and Triblio and the Sugar platform. A few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A tab and we'll try to answer them along the way or at the end of the presentation. Also, we are recording this webinar and we will be sending out the on-demand link afterwards. Now with me, I have some amazing speakers here with us today from both SugarCRM and Triblio. Let me start by introducing myself and then I'll let them introduce themselves. So I am Marissa Bialik. I'm the Demand Marketing Manager here at Bombora. Bombora is the leading provider of intent data with our branded company surge intent data. Claire, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself next?
Sure, Claire Dorian, CMO here at SugarCRM, coming at you from a soggy Sonoma after all those storms. And I've been with Sugar for, 18 months, probably about 2 weeks more than you, right, JR?
Yeah.
So SugarCRM, we are a CRM provider and we are all about letting the platform do the work. And that's going to be a theme that we're going to speak to today. JR, you want to go and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Jason Rushforth, SVP and General Manager of the Americas here at Sugar. I run revenue for the business. As Claire mentioned, I'm just a couple weeks newer than Claire to the organization. I'm coming to you from Toronto, Canada today. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, Triblio and Bombora, and I can't wait to share it with you today.
Everyone, and I'm Andrew Marr. I am the Chief Customer Officer at Triblio. Triblio is an account-based marketing platform that allows you to find the accounts that are currently in market and then run end-to-end orchestrated campaigns to them. As Chief Customer Officer, I've worked with hundreds of our customers launching ABM programs, and it's been a really unique pleasure working with the SugarCRM team over the last year or so to line up and launch their program. You're going to hear from them why that's been so exciting, but great to participate in the panel with everyone today.
Thanks, everyone. We're excited to have you all here with us today. So on today's webinar, we'll give a quick introduction to Bombora and Triblio. We'll talk about how SugarCRM marketing and sales use Triblio Smart Score and Bombora Company Surge. We'll review some key takeaways, and finally, we'll open it up for Q&A. Now, before we jump into all of that, we'll be talking a lot about company surge intent data today. So for anyone who's not familiar with Bombora, let me define it for you quickly. Company surge intent data tells you which businesses are researching the products and services that you and your competitors sell. This is how Bombora helps marketing and sales leaders prioritize their resources to generate more leads, pipeline, and opportunities. And we do this by understanding the usual content consumption patterns of a business against an intent topic in our taxonomy. And those are related to B2B companies, products, solutions, or trends. Next slide, please. So we identify when these companies are consuming those topics more than they normally do, which is what we call company surge. It's a buying intent signal that indicates when a company may be in market for a particular B2B product or service and the intensity of that interest. So with that, Andrew, I'll pass things off to you to introduce us to Triblio.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Triblio is an account-based marketing platform. So we allow you to find those in-market accounts and then run these end-to-end campaigns or buyer's journeys for them. Smart Score is a component of that you're going to be hearing about from the Sugar team today. As we just heard, Bombora allows you to find so much of that third-party intent, what research is happening off of our own properties out there on the wider interwebs that we can tap into. You can think of Smart Score as bringing that together with all of your own first-party signals to create a predictive score indicating how close a company is to actually purchasing from you based on what you're seeing from Bombora, any other intent feeds you have, as well as are they responding to your campaigns? Are they clicking on your ads? Are they anonymously on your website? What other activity do we see? So that you have that comprehensive view and then can activate that data either through marketing channels or through sales follow-up, ideally both, which is what you're going to hear about today. You can jump to the next slide. A visual you'll be seeing in the presentation later today, just to give you an example of this, is a report we have called the Account 360, which is what it sounds like. It's a 360 view of that buyer's journey, which usually is starting with that Bombora signal, the third-party intent. When people are first looking at, in their case, in Sugar's case, CRM or Salesforce automation or these other solutions. And then after we see, and those are the red dots on the graph, but then after we see that intent, we'll begin advertising to them, doing other things, and you'll see that first party engagement pick up over time. And these are those other early signals that then marketing and sales can begin to pick up on to further, drive action and interest from that account, bring them closer to a purchasing decision. So it includes things like intent data, display ads, LinkedIn, website traffic. And again, you'll hear more specific examples of that today, but that's Triblio and our Smart Score in a nutshell.
Very cool. Thanks, Andrew. All right, so let's get into Sugar's story. Claire, can you tell us why Sugar decided to dive into this initiative?
I sure can, Marissa. And I hope that, the folks that are with us today can identify with some of our motivations and why we embarked on this journey. I mean, first and foremost, I think a little bit of important context. So SugarCRM, we're a challenger brand in a very mature market, competing with some Goliaths. If any of you know the CRM market, you probably know who I'm talking about. And the good news for us was, as a direct consequence of the pandemic, steak dinners, the kind of expensive relationship building, that just went away. And it really leveled the playing field for challenger brands like Sugar to really look at different and innovative tactics that we could lean into to really get ahead of the buying cycle and better understand and prioritize who we were targeting. I think the second rationale really centered on personalization and relevance, and there's been a lot written about that of late, so I don't think I have to explain that one. Really important that our communication and outreach spoke to what buyers cared about in that moment. ROI. I mean, I don't think there's probably anybody on this webinar that doesn't want to spend time on useless, wasted leads. And we were the same. We're always at Sugar looking for ways to reduce the amount of time and energy and effort we're spending on unproductive leads that are really going to go nowhere. And obviously, we want to instead direct our energy towards the good ones, and the ones that are likely to convert, the folks that are in market, quite simply. And you already heard Andrew touch on that, getting ahead of that with both the intent insight and also the orchestration was really going to allow us to capitalize on that and that effectiveness and efficiency. And then the final motivation was really one of alignment. I'm very proud of the relationship that Jason, JR as I affectionately call him, and I have across both our sales and marketing teams here at Sugar. But I think when you start on this journey of devising a strategy that is intent-led and account-centric, it really helps galvanize you as one combined team. You are focused on, you both have the same priorities. You both need to buy into the same strategy in order to succeed. And so it was just one more way for us to really accelerate our combined success, but also accelerate the alignment that we'd already established across our two teams. And what you can see here, interestingly enough, if you just go back to the previous slide, Jason, alignment isn't something that we should all take for granted, right? We actually recently surveyed some sales and marketing professionals, and the results here are pretty stark, that there are still too many of us that aren't well aligned in terms of our goals and our objectives. And what was interesting and notable for us when we ran this pulse survey out on social media channels was that technology was something that those respondees indicated was a really important way to help drive alignment. And so that's a philosophy that we actually share here at Sugar. It's not the only thing, don't get me wrong, people, process, and technology combined are what's required. But on this next slide, you'll see that, we fundamentally believe that letting the combined platforms of your CRM system of records and engagement alongside technology like Bombora that can allow you to get ahead of the buying cycle, combined with technology like Triblio that allows you to, in a highly targeted fashion, reach out and engage with those accounts in a meaningful fashion, that allows you to let the platform do the work. No more busy work. And you'll hear us talk about this as we dive into the use case and the story of Sugar. No more blind spots, because you're not fumbling and stumbling around the leads that you've generated to try and figure out with your manual lead scoring which ones to prioritize. The platform, the combined platform of Sugar, Bombora, and Triblio, as hopefully you will see today, are really the winning formula and really what are allowing you to find that audience in a smart way and engage with them in a smart way. And one thing I will say before I hand it back to you, Marissa, is what's perhaps unique about this webinar is JR is actually going to take the lead as we demonstrate how we're using the platform. And it's really by way of emphasizing how engaged and how important this is, not just as a marketing endeavor, but also as a sales endeavor combined.
Definitely. It's a winning formula for sure. And we're glad to have both sales and marketing using it together. Thanks, Claire. Now, Jason, can you tell us how Sugar is actually using all these tools and data to orchestrate sales actions over at Sugar?
I would love to. And it's probably an oddity to have a salesperson presenting at a MarTech webinar today. So thanks for having me from the other side to join you today. And here at Sugar. And the concept of pipeline saves lives is a motto that we use, and it's kind of tongue in cheek and it's kind of funny. And you think about it from a seller's perspective. Without pipeline, well, maybe you won't work here if you don't have the revenue to follow suit. But pipeline saves lives is more than just a fun statement that we make here at Sugar. Pipeline saves lives is the #1 KPI that Claire and I look at together on a weekly basis to understand what the future revenue outcomes can be for the organization. So it means multiple things to multiple people. When I say pipeline saves lives to my sellers, what I'm referring to is, do you have depth and breadth in the pipeline? We're in our quarter end right now, for example. Is it binary? Do you have one deal and either you're going to win or lose that deal and hit the budget or hit your quota? Or, do you have fallback deals that you can pull into play? Depth and breadth of pipeline matters. So we look at the shape and size of our pipeline. We look at conversion rates along the way. The #1 conversion rate that I really think about, what is the full convert on that? And from there, we can take our close rates and start backing into what amount of pipeline. We've had a great success story here at Sugar with exponential growth quarter over quarter over quarter, where we were flat before the 18 months that Claire and I joined. And I attribute that to maniacal focus, working together. I can't get to revenue without Claire and her organization, without my marketing organization. I can't get to revenue, and I can't get there without the pipeline and having a fully activated organization around me, because it's not just in Claire's best interest to build pipeline, it's in the AE's best interest, it's in the BDR's best interest, it's in our executive team's best interest. And Claire, I'm not going to take your thunder from the end of this presentation, but pipeline saves lives is the driving factor for growth that we have here at Sugar. So Claire talked about reducing blind spots and busy work. I want to share a very quick story, because I was thinking about this before this webinar and just thinking about the progress from 18 months ago to where we are today. And I remember this story vividly, and it was, circa 2007. So I'm dating myself. I've been in the industry for 21 years. But in the 07 range, I'll never forget, we had a huge BDR organization in Chicago. These lists, and basically you had an Excel spreadsheet, and they would pound those lists trying to find the right person at the organization. And you think about the timing aspect of that, right? So I have to get the right person on the right day before they purchase, where they're thinking about purchasing a product or solution from us, and hopefully be able to build a pipeline. It was expensive, it was time consuming, and it was finding a needle in a haystack. And it was hundreds and thousands of calls before you would actually get to an opportunity. And I think about what we're doing here to reduce those blind spots and busy work. And what we're doing is we're taking these signals that are happening all around us, and we're saying, how do we activate those signals beyond the traditional, let's fire some advertisement at that particular organization or individual. And we're taking that and we're activating it to be aggressive in the marketplace, working hand in hand with sales and marketing to create a narrative that we're delivering via the applications that we've deployed. And so we reduced a lot of the busy work and opportunities out of it. The blind spots that come from that, what if you've had a conversation and the person hangs up the phone? And I think about this a lot. They hang up the phone and say, not interested, which is, an early stage buyer is probably going to say to you, and they hang up the phone. And the next thing they do is a CIO asks 10 people to go. Blind spots are critical to remove in order to develop sustainable pipeline. And so this is something I'm super proud of because, and I share it to my friends all the time. I have a lot of salespeople friends. When I recruit people to join Sugar, I actually show them what we're doing with Bombora data and Triblio as a tool that we give back to the field that allows them to be productive in development of pipeline. So what you're seeing on the screen, this is not a pitch for Sugar, but maybe it is because I'm a sales guy, is the data that is serviced through Triblio and Bombora within a Sugar dashlet or dashboard. So when my reps, my AEs, BDRs log into Sugar, we're not asking them, and this is a really important point for me as somebody who runs a sales organization, we're not saying, hey, log into Triblio, collect this information, and then go over into Sugar and go find those accounts. We're saying dashboards. And by the way, all of these bar charts, you can drill in, you can see the full list of companies that make up the data that's represented on the screen, and then you can drill a step further. So it's like landing an airplane. We're at a 10,000 foot view. We get to 2,000 feet by seeing the list, and then you can actually land the plane by drilling into that particular contact or company, sorry. But we can look at prioritized accounts. So who have the top smart scores, which is the algorithm that Triblio services up. We can see which ABM accounts have been on our site this week. And when I wake up in the morning, I look at this data very, very closely because I have general theories that I'm working through or narratives around the data. I don't believe that a mid-stage buyer for SugarCRM is not doing research on our website. And when I have an opportunity in pipe, and this is just a little insight to how I look at this data, when I have an opportunity that's a mid-stage opportunity in pipeline, and the ABM, the Triblio platform, so they might be surging and they might be looking at our mega vendor in our space that we're competing with, but they've had no activity. It's a huge red flag for me. They're not doing research on us, or we call them fodder. It allows me to triage and ask different questions. So this data is not just the dark funnel for me, it's in-stage opportunities, it's customers that we're engaged with, it's partners that are thinking about partnering with us, and it tells a beautiful story with those organizations. So the Bombora intent data inside of Triblio and Sugar Dashlet. So you saw the screen earlier from Andrew. And one of the things that was really important to this initiative was that we didn't ask our organization to log into Triblio and use that information. We said we have to provide intrinsic benefits to the field organization, the BDR organization, that sits outside of what ad expenditures are you going to put to a particular program and audience that you're running. Context of a CRM user. So this is what a traditional Bombora intent dashlet or dashboard looks like inside of Triblio, which you've seen. And we said, how do we take this information and create something more substantial for the individual? And so when I look at this, this is inside of Sugar yet again. So as I talked about landing the plane, as you get into the contact or company records inside of Sugar, you'll notice there's a dash context to the company that you're looking at. So I have an opportunity with Phillips 66. I want to go and look at what's happening there. I don't even know Phillips 66, but there's information that's telling me they might be in market. I can log in to Sugar and look right at Phillips 66 to see what context of information is coming directly from Triblio. And you'll notice that the red circles, which is the Bombora intent data, the blue dots, which is where there's been a website interaction, the gray dots, which is where there's been ad serving, is all representative here. And I'm going to get a little bit more into detail. But what services those dashboards that you saw a couple slides ago is the Triblio Smart Score that you're seeing on the screen, the topics, the number of topics they're surging. So we're not just integrating a inline view of Triblio data. What we're seeing is actual data that's being serviced within SugarCRM that allows you to write reports, have dashboards, run queries against your individual territory, or as an executive, I can look at it in totality, or Claire can as well, in context to what SugarCRM is. So this is something that Claire and I had discussed many months ago when we were deploying this, that we didn't want to start creating islands of information that were very important to the narrative of us building pipeline, but rather we wanted our team and users of our CRM system could see information in context to the accounts that people are looking at day to day.
I think as well, JR, there's an important velocity point here as well, isn't there? Because, you know, I think we all know we're all in the business of getting to opportunity as fast and as effectively as we can, and then getting to close as fast and as effectively as we can. So less time spent in and around other systems trying to compile the combined value of the insight from all these different systems is time well spent, because the faster the BDR can get to the qualification, the faster the lead can get handed off to a seller, the faster the customer rep can understand that the account is at risk and actually do something about it.
Yeah, and I guess the last point I would say around this is we did this because we want our customers to do this. This is something that we feel is groundbreaking in terms of how to take this intent data, the smart score data, and pull it together and provide intrinsic benefit. And by the way, when I show this to customers where I talk to their CROs, they're blown away by this. They're absolutely like, yes, I need to build pipe. Yes, I need to sell more. And you're never going to meet a probably about to retire. When you meet those people and you show this capability, it really ties together the sales and marketing story that we've been talking about for 10 years now. How do you align with sales and marketing? How do you create the context of KPIs that align you to move together? But then how do you take these complex MarTech stacks and figure out what the most relevant pieces of information are inside your MarTech stack and push that into, and this is my sales hat that I'm wearing right now, but how do you push that into a sales user that can action that information and build pipeline to close revenue? So it's super powerful, something that I think is really interesting. So I'm going to talk to you for just a second about our process. Now I'm simplifying this right now because it's a lot more intertwined and complex than this. But at the end of the day, we have these signals that are happening that the average user or average salesperson has no idea of what's going on unless they have access to tools like this. So, we do get surfaced a variety of orchestration emails. The first email that we get on a day-to-day basis in our industry is our G2 buyer intent data. SugarCRM's on G2 Crowd, company surge data embedded in G2 Crowd. And every morning, I think it's at like 4 a.m. East Coast time, emails are sent from G2 Crowd that trigger who's looking at your products and services on G2 Crowd. So that's like one signal that we get, and we can log into G2. We can see what the Bombora data is represented by that. We also get Bombora because we're a Bombora user, obviously. Bombora as we receive Triblio Smart Score reports. And those are routed based on territory rules, individuals that manage a particular geographic or physical region. And that information is kind of the start of the day, right? You get this information, you look at it, you triage that information. But what's really important is that to the account in Sugar. And what's important to note about that is that we inspect the data inside of Sugar. And one of the things that I think is really unique, and I think Andrew will attest to this, is that if they're not inside of Sugar, well, very quickly, we have a no-touch CRM, so you can just quickly add the record into Sugar if that company doesn't exist because it's not been added in the past. But more importantly, if they're not part of a current ABM program, the field organization in 30 seconds or less can add that company record into. And so, from there, we determine our outreach based on demographic information. And what I mean by that is we see information inside of Sugar that's serviced by Triblio as to who the company is, what they're looking at. We know the demographic location, so it helps you really refine who you're going to talk to. Fortune 500, but all of the activity is coming from Wichita, Kansas. There happens to be a sales and marketing hub in Wichita, Kansas. We can start to really refine who inside that organization we believe are looking at purchasing CRM or investigating CRM, and that allows us to engage. And then obviously we move to outbound BDR and account executive engagement. So this is an example of what the activation can look like. So the daily email comes out, and as I said, there's the direct link into Sugar right from this report. And so these reports are golden. If you think about Glengarry Glen Ross cards, this is where we point our direction on any given day. And it lets us get line of sight into what our prospects, so we might be in flight, they might be top of funnel, we have no idea what's happening with that particular account. They might be existing customers that are thinking about expanding their relationship with Sugar by saying, I want to look at Sugar market because they're a Sugar cell user. So we get that line of sight and it's routed to the appropriate people for action. And that's kind of the start of it all, right? Triblio is orchestrating. You'll see the purple crosses on some of the screenshots through the webinar. Those purple crosses are where orchestration happens, and orchestration happens when there's a combination of intent or company search data from Bombora, plus the algorithm that's written by Triblio. And when they determine the time is right, that's when they are added to the Triblio Smart Score reports. And we act on that. And part of our cadence is to act on this data and put it to work, because the data doesn't lie. And I'll share a couple stories about that in just a few moments. So this is where we inspect the data. This is, we've seen the screenshot. There's so many amazing things that we if Philip 66 is a relatively unknown prospect to Sugar, we actually have embedded inside of Sugar a variety of tools that allow an end user to start building the contact database so we can add them to our outbound marketing automation campaigns, so we can engage via email and telephone with the contacts themselves. So we didn't really talk about contacts, but we've also embedded inside View. So through the click of a button, I can pull a list and add them directly into Sugar for outbound marketing purposes and who we want to engage with. And so it's one-click access to Triblio data, Bombora data, to building out the account profile. For unknown accounts, I can do that very quickly. So I can triage this Triblio data to determine who's who I think is who, and then build the roster of people very quickly, so I can ship from a marketing automation and a BDR and AE perspective.
Jason, quick.
Yeah.
Two things actually. So we got a question about the Sugar market integration. You kind of broke up as you were going over that. Would you mind covering that again? And I think we're having a little bit of audio breakage problems. So maybe turn off your video. Let's see if that helps our audio for the audience.
Sure thing.
Maybe I can take that one. So what we've done here at Sugar is we've integrated our marketing automation with our CRM directly. And then Triblio and Bombora Insight and Intel is fed into our CRM. So that's the integration that we have. And we have communication that goes back and forth between them all, to make sure that information is shared across all four, across both our marketing automation and also our CRM. So I hope that answers that question for whoever it was that asked that. So yes, it was a core tenet that we needed this integration to operate as effectively as we could.
Great, thanks, Claire. I hope everybody can hear me. So just to drill down a little bit deeper, we inside the dashlet for Triblio, we kind of categorized it across summary level details, which is really important information around the company or prospect. The timeline view, so what the frequency of touch points is in a graphical format, which is basically the Triblio screenshot that you've seen. If we have known visitors, we can source those known visitors, as well as looking at any smart pages, which is a function of Triblio, and the surge data that we're collecting about the companies and prospects. So, when I scroll down summary information, at a high level, it's so easy. What are the total number of activities? How many known visitors? How many unknown visitors? And, is this account active? So it's showing intent, and what is the intent score this week? Those are really important pieces of data that we look at, because it kind of points you into what they're looking at. We can drill very deep into this to see what pages they were specifically looking at. We can look at where their intent data and topics are that are surging for this account. So, there's always a correlation between they're looking at marketing automation and they've been on Sugar Market pages. We see that time and time again, and we can look through and understand what experience this prospect or customer is going through with our brand in order to ensure that the message is on point and the ICP, the ideal, the customer profile, who do we want to target here? Is it the CMO? Is it the CRO? Is it the CIO? Is it the CFO? And based on what's surging and the intent data tells me what pages they've been on, I can quickly triage this information to understand which individuals are likely to be looking at us. And obviously the timeline data, but this is all represented inside of Sugar. Yet again, we didn't want our end users to be focused on learning a new tool, logging into multiple data sources to do their job. And this is all right at the fingertips of the individuals. So some key fields, and we talked about this. When you're on an account level detail, as we've looked at, you can see that one-to-one. I'm on Phillips 66. I can see all of the historical CRM data, obviously. And then you have your Triblio and Bombora data that's servicing inside of our application. But we also are collecting a variety of different fields from inside of Triblio. And so when we get the smart score, the number of topics surging, the number of engagements, the most recent view, any rep inside of our organization can have a dashlet or a dashboard that takes 2 minutes to create that says, I want to see everyone in my territory that's visited our website in the last 2 days or has visited since yesterday. And these data points are what drive the dashboard, taking it away from just a one-to-one experience for the end user, because otherwise the rep would have to go through every single account inside of Sugar to just see what Triblio is saying about it. Now we can use these data elements to build dashboards and reports that allow them to have a holistic view or a one-to-many of what's happening in his or her territory in order for them to activate and build that relationship with the customers and prospects. What's really important, and I think Claire, when I think about busy work, and I'll let Claire comment in a second, the amount of activity that happens between sales and marketing from a which audience segment should this account go into, if somebody new comes in as an inbound and they're not actively in an ABM program, there's a lot of manual effort. Right within Sugar, our field and our BDRs understand the different programs or the audiences, sorry, and they can add a company to an ABM audience segment right from within Sugar within 2 seconds, one click away. But Claire, do you want to comment on what that looks like from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, sure. And, you know, I think this is something that I hope a lot of you, or I think a lot of you with us today can relate to. How many times are you sending emails, messages on whatever collaboration tools you use to share insights with, you know, reps in the field that you're working with about activity and engagement on accounts that they care about things that they need to do right now because somebody just attended a webinar and, you know, the scoring is telling you that they're really, really hot. And yet the rep's probably in a meeting and probably distracted and maybe isn't responding in a timely way. That is a huge amount of time that you are spending outside of your systems trying to coerce somebody into action. And I can't tell you how much having this insight integrated in context for the rep with the power at the fingertips of the rep is saving my team. And that means that we get to do the fun stuff. You know, we get to think about the ads that we want to serve up. We get to think about the creative. We get to think about the message. We don't have to think about the administrative tasks because, let's face it, that's not terribly motivating for anybody. So when you hear Jason talk about the huge benefit and the huge time saving for the rep, please don't underestimate, based on our experience, the time saving for marketing as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. So, you know, once again, this is where we can use this insight to really drive engagement. I want to share a story, and I wish my camera was on because my hands are flailing everywhere, but unfortunately you won't be able to hear me if my camera's on. The data doesn't lie. And one of my very first experiences with this was when we were first deploying it, and we were looking at the information, and what you see behind you is a variety of different guitars. And this is a major retailer that sells musical instruments, I think specifically guitars. And we saw this Bombora surge data. They're in market for CRM. There is no question in my mind. I'm looking at the frequency that they're hitting our website and all of this information. So I reach out to the CIO of this particular brand, and I said, hey, here's what the information that I see tells me about you. And he actually responded in 5 minutes and said, how do you know this? And I walked him through it. And then he said, it's unfortunate, but I bought your competitive product just 3 months ago or 2 months ago. And I was like, oh, what's wrong with the data? I remember talking to the marketing team saying maybe there's an issue with the information. I'm not 100% sure. And fast forward the clock, right? My CEO gets a note on LinkedIn from a company that was just acquired by this major brand. And the request was to go on Sugar, even though that brand was deploying a competitive solution. They knew Sugar, they wanted to go on Sugar and run their business on the Sugar platform. So when you work from that point backwards, and I actually had a conversation with who is now a customer, was a prospect, and asked them, they said, yeah, we were doing the research. We were seeing the signals. I didn't understand fully at the beginning how to interpret those signals, but the thing that I'll tell you is when you see company surge data, if people are researching you on third-party sites like a G2 Crowd, if people are hitting your website and doing investigation, looking at your products and services, what I'll tell you is the data doesn't lie. Nobody does this for fun. If people are looking at your organization, your web properties, and they are surging from Bombora and they have a Triblio Smart score above 60, my guess is they are in market. Now, the question is, how do you triage that organization to find the right people? In this case of the guitar company, I didn't triage it enough and I didn't look deep enough at the organization structure. Otherwise, I probably would have found it, but they found us. They had done enough research and they had found us. And when I use this data, I tell my team time and time again, the data doesn't lie. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back and thank you everyone for your time today.
Thank you, Jason. That's a really great example and story that you just shared. And it's definitely true. The data does not lie. So guys, what's next for Sugar?
Well, I think there's probably 3 areas of focus for us, Marissa. And bear in mind, apparently my dog is as enthusiastic about this topic as I am, so apologies for me moving. You know, this is a program of work that we've had up and running for a matter of months, not years. You know, 3 areas that we know we need to double down on moving forward. Out of the gate, we focused in marketing on creating ads and smart pages, personalized landing pages, think of them as, you know, for accounts that were surging. And we want to take that one step further and introduce website personalization. And we know that that's something through the Triblio platform that we can do to just continue to personalize more and more of the channels that those prospects and customers and partners might touch. And I think the second thing is, as proud as we are of the integration that we have between our marketing automation and our CRM, Triblio and Bombora, contact appending still remains somewhat manual. And, you know, it's probably the most manual piece of this winning formula right now. And we know that what we're doing is not winning in that regard. So we're actively looking at ways to better integrate the data acquisition step to speed, you know, the outreach and the engagement from an outbound perspective and speed the response where it's something that we're responding to from an inbound perspective. And then the third thing is just something that, you know, for any of you that are thinking about any MarTech investment, but particularly one that so intimately ties sales and marketing, we are investing increasingly in enabling and educating. I can't stress enough, this should not be a one-time endeavor for launch. You know, we are looking at introducing what we're calling ABM office hours for ad hoc questions, so that anybody out there in the field and in marketing for that matter can drop in with our team of experts to ask questions that are either preventing them from achieving what it is that they need to do, or just simply something that they don't think is working very well. And then the second thing that we're doing are what we're calling level up calls. So as opposed to Q&A on something that is inhibiting progress, this is more about sharing successes, sharing stories like the Guitar Center that Jason did to help bolster excitement and engagement internally within our sales and marketing organization about the power of these combined platforms. And so Marissa, shall I wrap it up with some key takeaways for everybody on the call today?
Sure. Before we get into that, I want to give a chance for Andrew to chime in. Do you have any other thoughts or comments to add?
Yeah, I think it's so commendable, and a huge part of the success that Sugar is seeing with this program is that, you know, what you're seeing with Jason and Claire really presenting together. You can see it's a shared vision, it's a shared effort. They're aligned around strategic things like KPIs on pipeline. They're aligned around process and account prioritization. And, you know, the way it's being set up as a program, not a campaign. I think that too often people can think of ABM as something they're going to launch and do in the short term, like Claire was saying, but the initiative to put in place things like office hours, I mean, that's a long-term pillar that's being put in place. The reps need to be educated. There's resources for them to be educated. It's integrated into their workflows now. And that whole, just the alignment that you see, I think is really a huge part, not just the data and technology, but is a huge part of how they're getting to the results they're getting. And it's a great example, and I appreciate them sharing all that today.
Absolutely. So Claire, take it away with the key takeaways there.
All right, no problem. And as I do, I'll try and answer one of the questions that I also see in the chat window as well. So, you know, for the avoidance of doubt, you heard Andrew say it there. You know, this is a shared vision. We all own pipeline, because if we all own pipeline, we can not only save our own lives, but we can likely save the lives of our colleagues, as you heard Jason say today. And these are tools that are not just for BDRs. Make no mistake, we are using the power of SugarCRM with Triblio and Bombora for our reps in the field. Our customer success managers that look after customer accounts are also actively using the platform to help them understand accounts at risk, for example, you know, where they may be searching for something. So make no mistake, this is not a marketing only endeavor, a sales only endeavor, just for BDRs. We are using this across the board here within Sugar. And I think that's really, truly where the power of this lies. And, you know, as we work together, it's really important that we establish goals and KPIs, that we invested time together, that we plan together, because that's when you can truly experience success together. And that for us is a recipe, you know, that we would advocate for any of you considering starting on this journey. I think the second takeaway is to reiterate what Jason said. The data just does not lie. You know, I'm sure Andrew and Melissa, you could cite a ton of examples from other customers who are simply using these platforms to take the guesswork out of your targeting, you know, to go beyond what you're probably doing right now, which quite frankly is a ton of busy work and manual effort, you know, to help understand who you should be prioritizing either inbound responses to or proactive outbound outreach to. But importantly, you know, as you examine that data, you shouldn't just be listening to what your prospects are saying. You should be actioning and using those insights to prioritize who you engage with, how you engage with. And over time, we know that the insights that we glean will really help us understand which asset types, which type of content is being consumed by which type of segment most effectively, so that we can not only use this tool to guide pipeline, but we can use this tool to really truly guide our content strategy as well. I think the other thing is, some of you may be sat listening and thinking, oh, goodness me, you know, this sounds a bit like analysis paralysis. You know, you've got intent, you know, insights about who's surging in market. You've got other insights coming from maybe many other tools and systems that you're using. You know, I think for us at Sugar, we set out on this journey with a very clear mantra that we did not want to think about this as analysis paralysis. And in fact, our approach was this, and you know, our recommendation to you guys is this might just save you from spreadsheet hell. You know, this combination of technology, the CRM integrated with intent, integrated with Triblio to orchestrate your ads, to orchestrate your landing pages, and in future for Sugar to orchestrate highly personalized web pages on SugarCRM. That's a really powerful combination. And serving up those insights in context for those that need them, and that the expectation is on to action them. That's what avoids analysis paralysis and thousands of spreadsheets that probably your marketing and sales ops people are having to work in every single day. And I think the final takeaway, for you all is, if your intent-led ABM strategy and execution plan is well planned and well integrated, and if you put the time in to truly enable all the teams effectively, it can only strengthen the results and the focus that you have as a go-to-market team. And I'm really, really proud to say, and to wrap up this webinar before we move to Q&A, that, you're probably all sat thinking, well, that's all well and good, Jason and Claire, but, what sort of success did you see, and when? Well, I can tell you that 10 weeks post-launch, we found $2 million worth of pipeline that we didn't even know existed, right? And so this stuff really works. And 3 months later, we doubled that to 4 million. So it's a really great tool to help you get ahead of buying cycles, to help you figure out that dark funnel, as Jason referred to, and know where to put your people and your energy and your focus to best advantage. And I'm really excited about the journey that we're on with Bombora and Triblio combined with Sugar, and I feel like we're only just getting started. And so with that, Marissa, I will hand it back to you.
Thanks, Claire. That was great. I know I loved hearing about how the Sugar team puts the winning formula to work, and I think our audience did as well. So thank you guys for sharing all of that. So like Claire said, let's get into the Q&A. And while we go through the questions, just a reminder that you can submit your questions in the Q&A tab on your screen or in the chat if you haven't already. Also, as we go through the questions, you should see a poll pop up on your screen. So if you'd like to receive more information from any of the platforms you heard about today, please respond appropriately, and we'll be sure to have someone reach out. So let's get into the Q&A here. The first question we have is, who are the stakeholders you would recommend getting buy-in for this type of initiative?
Claire, do you want to take that?
See him, yeah, I mean, it starts with who you see right here on the webinar, I think as a sales and marketing leadership team, you have to understand the purpose of what this strategy can do for you, what's important to you as a business, and have mutual goals and KPIs baked around that. So I think it starts with the leadership team, Marissa, but then, we made every effort to also engage the folks that we were going to lean into, to own and manage the integration, to develop the orchestration. We also spent a huge amount of time getting the reps in the field, the customer success managers. And by the way, we started in North America first because we wanted to see success in one region before we went stratospheric. So, we took a very purposeful, a very deliberate approach that started with leadership, but did not stop there. JR, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Well, and, I think from my perspective, sometimes working with the field organization, it takes top-down leadership to propagate this and for the field to understand. So from my perspective, I was bought in very early on, but I worked very closely with my direct reports and the field organization. I recorded webinars with them. I talked about the value it can provide. And then when you boil that back up to operation, so it's not really answering the question directly, but the process that goes around it. So getting people on the right bus. But I think it started with Claire and I saying this is something we need to do to uplift the business revenue by finding that pipeline that's so critical for us.
And quite honestly, for me, this is like any technology purchase that you make as a sales and marketing organization. You know, you wouldn't do it in isolation as a marketing team and create an island from your sales counterparts, right? And you'd want them to understand. So treat this no differently.
Awesome. I think this next question we'll want to hear from both the sales side and the marketing side, but what was the biggest challenge with this program?
From a
Do you want to
sales,
take this one first, JR?
yeah, so the biggest cultural thing that you know, we had to get over was not a technology problem. Once we integrated the technology and the applications, it was the expectation that pipeline was not just a function of marketing and BDRs, but rather everybody. And I would say that was kind of the biggest cultural shift. So it's, you know, here's a SMART score report. I need to be on top of inspecting if the team is actually activating it and creating that muscle memory in the field that prospecting is a component of their day. I had everybody in my organization block off minimum of 1 hour every day, first thing in the morning, to use this information and to activate it, look at it, figure it out, and start engaging with prospects and customers. But without that inspection, without the expectation setting, it probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. A lot of field organizations believe that pipeline needs to come from marketing. I believe that AEs and BDRs working together hand in hand can create sustainable pipeline, and anything else on top of that is gravy. And so how do you get to your number? Creating the culture around sales needs to own their pipeline.
And I think coupled with that, I'm going to go back to my point on enablement. You know, we spent a lot of time making sure that we were building and adopting the right kind of education. And it wasn't a one-time endeavor. You know, we did that in team meetings. So we found existing vehicles, and I would encourage you to do that. We also created distinct and separate destinations for people to come to learn. We created on-demand videos because different people learn in different ways. We did some one-to-one training, and we made it a part of new hire training, both for marketing and sales. So I think the other thing is just don't underestimate the power of you know, don't just think about setting up the platform to drive the pipeline. Think about how you educate and excite the participants in this program and this technology so they want to use it to help them be successful.
Yep.
Great points. All right, I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you everyone for joining, and a big thank you to our speakers. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye.